New Year?
Oh. Oti parthe nosti oro emi en alitheni she rev sho ente epengen osare egfonan enemano oil. We ask you to remember us, O our faithful advocate, for our Lord Jesus Christ may forgive us our sins. Sing to the Lord a new song, O people who love Christ our God, for he visited us with his salvation. As a good one and lover of mankind,
we ascribe praise unto you with voices of glorification. O our good Savior, confirm us unto the end.
Grant us, O Lord, your peace, and save us from the hands of our enemies. Humiliate their counsel, and heal our sicknesses.
Bless the crown of the year with your goodness, O Lord, the rivers and the springs, the plants and the fruit.
Bless us in our work with your heavenly blessings, and send unto us from on high your grace and your goodness.
The afflicted save them, the travelers return them, the bound loosen them, and those who have slept repose them.
Lift away your wrath from us, and deliver us from inflation and from the snares of demons, O giver of good things.
We praise and glorify him and exalt him above all as the good one and lover of mankind. Have mercy on us according to your great mercy.
Everyone can have a seat. First of all, we hope you all enjoyed the workshops and sound like everybody was very engaged, so thank God. Right now what we're going to do, hopefully each of you with the fathers have chosen someone to speak on your group and the paper that was filled out. So when your group gets called up, just read you can state the question and just the points, but not a whole talk, just the points that as a group you came up with to the answers to the question. So if we can have the first group will be the pre-K to second grade, if there was a representative. Thank you.
The purpose of this again is to share. Everyone was in different groups. We want FaceTime, we want everyone to be able to speak, but if we were to try to have a discussion with all of us gathered together, it would be very difficult. So the purpose is for us to go into smaller groups and discuss with one another. So sort of the purpose of now is for us to just share what we benefited and what we discussed together, so that we can all have benefited from each group. Nothing like about 5 minutes each group, and then we'll conclude and we're done.
Okay, so we had the pre-K to second grade, and the first question was how to establish classroom rules for this young age. We first said consistency, and split the class into small groups. We also talked about positive reinforcement, where we can give rewards for good behavior, and repeating the rules and having the kids repeat the rules as well. Also, we said there's a visual aid cartoon that we can use to repeat all these rules, and it makes the kids interactive. The second question was how to deal with disruptive behavior and also when to involve the kids' parents. So the first one we said we give the kids responsibility. So the kid who's making, dausha or trouble, it's a good idea to give them responsibility in the class. Maybe they can give like stickers, or they can act the story in the Bible with us. Sometimes arranging them differently, that could help as well, and have them get involved in the classroom. Another thing is that we can put that specific kid out of the class. We can talk to them privately, or have them maybe attend a different class that was another idea, attend like a different class and see how they react. When to involve the kids' parents, we usually don't do that until it's becoming continuous, or it's becoming very harmful for the kid the kid himself or herself, or to others, whether it's physical or psychological. Maybe they're saying like bad words to other kids. Maybe we can involve the kids at that point. The parents at that point. We also like to communicate with the parents if that kid has any medical issue that we should know about, that preventing them from focusing in the classroom. The third question was the importance of utilizing media and tools, and of course using media for this age is very important because their attention span is very short. So it helps them to focus and be interactive. So things like using puppets, having the story acted out for them by the servants or by the kids themselves as well, using cartoon like YouTube videos, or using something, if some kids, like we give them homework, we can use rewards as well if they return the homework. The fourth question is how do I get excited about the lesson and message during my preparation? Even though that it's been, some of these stories, we've listened to them a million times. So, and one way is to look at it in a different perspective or a different angle. A second way is to use like reflection, like a personal reflection on the actual lesson, like a meditation, how this affected me, so I can deliver this message to the kids. And the third one is the reaction of the kids. Some of these kids, the way they react to the lesson, it makes you, get excited as well, and you want to be involved more in giving that lesson. But the first of the thing that we have to always do is to pray first and ask God for guidance to help us to deliver this message to the kids. As I said, the attention span is very short, so we have in such a short time, maybe like 10 minutes, we have to give the lesson, but we have to give it in a different way. Maybe we can use, the actual visual aid plus having them color. Plus all of this, while they're doing this, we can repeat the verse and we can repeat the story again and again. The last question asks about what's the best way of following up with this age group, and we said visitations. And during visitations, we always like to pray first. Maybe bring a small spiritual gift to them and play with them their favorite game. And also never to say any negative things about them. So if parents ask, how is my child? We're not going to say anything, and then we can confess. We say, they're doing great. And then it's fine. It's like, we don't want them to have this bad experience that, we're here for them. If it's something that you feel like you want to tell the parents, you can say it privately, but I don't think it should be a big deal. I think the whole visitation should be just focused on them, and it's not a social event for the parents, so this is just for them, not for the parents or the siblings, so we need to focus on that. Also, it's always a good idea to do a WhatsApp group for the parents to summarize the lesson and put maybe the YouTube video and put the memory verse as well, just to keep them communicating with us. And to do a little notebook where we can keep all the, coloring book. We found like if we give them a coloring book, a coloring page, they just can color it and then they don't keep it, they throw it in the garbage afterwards. So if we keep it in the notebook and give it to them at the end of the year, so at least they can show it to their parents page by page what they have done. Also, the last thing that we thought about is to do like small trips or do a spiritual day just for them, and that will keep them, interactive and feel special that this is a day just for them. Thank you.
The next group that we had was the 3rd to 5th grade.
So we had 3rd to 5th grade, and for the first of all, these words are all by the guidance of Abuna Seraphim, so these are not my words. But how to establish classroom rules for this young age. We said that we need to set rules from the beginning and not just create them, ad hoc just during the year. So they need to know, and then they need to know it. So there needs to be a system set in place, and that needs to be followed consistently. On top of that, we also agreed with the servant who recently just spoke. We should reward for good behavior, but punishment should be given in love, and it should not be destructive. For the second question, how to deal with disruptive behavior, and then when to involve the kids' parents. So as we said, it should be very instructive, not destructive. And then when you involve the kids' parents, we should not use the parents as a threat at all. We should never put the parents in between us and the kids as we're trying to develop a relationship with the kids. So instead of making the parents a threat, we should use them as a tool. So we only notify them if their behavior is being destructive and it's repeatedly destructive, and then we only notify them. We do not advise them how to deal with it. We just to notify you, your child is so-and-so, and then do not advise them on how to deal with that. As that might be taken in the wrong way. The third question asks the importance of utilizing media tools, and then is a PowerPoint a must or should be used as needed? We agreed that a PowerPoint or a visual aid, something that engaged more than just one sense, was a must. And then it's important because that grabs their attention, keeps them engaged, and then it's another way of learning. So you'll have a lot of visual learners. It'll push in the information even deeper into their minds. And then the PowerPoints will come again later in one of the other questions. For the fourth question, how do I get excited about the lesson and message during my preparations, though it might be a simple story that I have been telling for several years? So we agreed that creativity, in order to be creative and interesting with something that you've been hearing for several years, is to dig deep into other resources and find those little minute details in the stories that you've been reading that are new. So Pope Shenouda, he said that the Bible is the only thing that he was able to read over and over again and always get something new from it. So we can do the same, always try to find something new, try to find a new perspective in those lessons that you've been communicating for years, and then obviously use more research. For the fifth question, what is the best way of following up for this age? Visitation, WhatsApp group with the parents, texting the parents. So we actually agreed that all of the above should be used. We know that the visitations are very effective in developing a relationship with the children. And then one point is that in the visitation, if the child happens to be a little bit disruptive in the class, one thing we kind of used a trick. When you go to that visitation, don't mention the disruptive behavior in front of the child. And then they'll kind of anticipate, like, when are they going to mention that I don't behave in Sunday school? And then when you don't mention it, they feel indebted to you because you've almost forgiven them that, and you haven't mentioned it. So you're there only to develop that relationship, not to go and criticize the child. In terms of the WhatsApp group with the parents and texting the parents, we actually connected that to the visual aid, and it's very helpful sometimes when we implement the visual aid in texting that to the parents so that they also know what was going on, and in the case where someone missed a lesson, that visual aid can help the parent to guide their child and make up for that missed lesson. So for the sixth question, the importance of having a spirit of love and oneness among the fellow servants, we all unanimously agreed that this is obviously very important. And so the biggest point is that spirit of love and oneness. My father, Abuna Mina, always tells me that the lessons that you give, the words that you say will always be forgotten by the children. If you guys could try to remember a lesson that you learned in elementary school, it would be very, very hard. I'm only in college and I can't remember. So for those of you who have kids and who are older, it would probably be even harder. The only thing that they'll remember is the way that you treated them, the way that you interacted with the other servants. So your words are of less value than your actions. So that spirit of oneness is very, very important. For the last question, we had, what is the best way to implement discipleship from the older to younger servants? How to mentor a young servant without negative criticism? The need to understand that each servant has a different talent and can bring value in a different way than me. We are not carbon copies of each other. So we said that the discipleship with the older and the younger servants, again, these are the words of Buna Serafin, but when the older servants are guiding the younger servants, I'll say it in Arabic because he said it in Arabic, and excuse my Arabic, بس في فرق بين الفضيحة والنصيحة. So there is a difference between exposing and advising. So whenever a younger servant does make a mistake, which is natural and will happen, we should take them to the side and advise them and not expose them in front of the children, because the children will also catch on to that being exposed, and that will also deteriorate from the spirit of oneness. Also, to realize that we're not carbon copies of each other, we need to accept that there will be different methods. We're all the body of Christ, and we are all different. We all serve different functions. There will be different methods of teaching the lesson, and we need to accept that there are different methods, and they all complement each other. There is not one that's more important than the other.
Next group, we have the middle school.
So our first question for middle school is how to maintain the balance between compassion and taking stances and correcting mistakes. The first thing we said is that we need to show the child first that we do really love and care for them genuinely. The second thing is building their trust, for example, not purposely getting them in trouble with their parents or embarrassing them in front of the class. And we should personally also understand the child and get a better understanding of why they might be behaving in a certain way. And then we'll know how to handle them with compassion, and then they'll accept our correction when it's needed. Second question is how to deliver a message of unconditional love, care, and inclusion. So we said that we use the opportunity when a child is down or has a bad day to intentionally show extra love and care. We need to be genuine because the kids can see how a servant really feels, and we make sure that all the kids are shown equal attention, not just the ones who answer the most or they're the class clowns. And don't mentally or like subconsciously label the kids as good or bad. Try to start every Sunday or every day like have a new image of the kids and not label them as the troublemaker or the good one or the quiet one. Sorry, the fourth is visitation important in this age, and in what aspect? Yes, because it's a one-on-one relationship with middle school. A one-on-one relationship with middle school age is necessary because it. It's necessary, but the visitation, we decided it might not be a good idea to have it in the house, the whole visitation. Maybe the first 10 or 15 minutes can be spent with the parents, but after that, it might be a better idea to take the kid out to Starbucks or somewhere outside so you can have more one-on-one time and get to know them personally without maybe them being embarrassed to share things in front of their parents. The next question is, what are the age characteristics that a middle school youth servant should be aware of? One of the things that we need to be aware of is that at this age, they're going through a lot of hormonal changes and they're very irritable. And at this age, there is also a lot of drama that we need to be sensitive to and remembering how it felt for us at that age, and that they're also trying to build their identity and understand themselves. Next question is the importance of having a spirit of love and oneness among fellow servants, like a WhatsApp group, monthly outings, prayer meetings, and attending liturgy together. We said that the kids will be able to sense any mutual love, or mutual maybe hostility or hard feelings among the servants, and their eyes are always on us because they look to us as an example, and we need to be living examples of what we preach. And the last is aspects of commitment in the life of the servant. Being committed to praying for our kids and praying for guidance before and during the lesson. Also judging ourselves to see if we really have a heart to serve and if we are trying to give the kids 100%. Also being committed to preparing really good quality lessons so the kids see a value in coming to Sunday school. And lastly, we have to keep committed to the service even if we can't see the fruits of that service.
The next group that we had was the high school college.
Okay, so for high school and college, the first question was, how can we involve and engage the youth in service? So the first step that we talked about was that we, most importantly, especially with high school and college youth, you have to build a relationship, because if they don't trust you, they're really not gonna, have any reason to listen or to pay attention or be involved. So we have to build a relationship. And then by virtue of building a relationship, we'll learn more about what they like, what they're interested in, any skills or talents they might have, and then we'll be able to get them involved in some way. So if we find that they are good at singing, then maybe they can connect with a servant who likes Alhen, and they can teach them or encourage them to go to Saturday meetings or anything like that. And also another idea was to assign a youth a lesson. So maybe, for example, if I'm teaching a lesson on humility or something, I can call one of the youth and just kind of encourage them to help me with the lesson, and then call them during the week, and then be able to do that service or that lesson with them. So they can talk for, the first 10, 15 minutes, and then we can continue. So that's another idea. And then we talked a lot about outreach services. So as Sayedna talked about with all the acts of mercy, that one of the struggles that they have is connecting the inside of the church world with the outside church world. So being able to see that that's one by doing things like homeless outreach, or serving, going to visit people in hospitals or prison or things like that, that we'd need to encourage them to do these things. So question 2 was how to do visitation and one-on-one service. So we talked about visitation being really, really important for this age group, and that the most beneficial type of visitation would be with 2 servants. Just in case, I know myself, when I've gone on visitations by myself, just by virtue of a servant canceling, I found that it was hard because you have no one to encourage you, and then if you don't know what to say or how to engage something, it's really nice to have that servant excuse me, to lift each other up and to support each other in talking and connecting with that youth. And again, building a relationship. And then something important, of course, going into a home, you learn a lot about the context of a youth. So knowing what the family dynamics are, what the home living environment is, and all those kinds of things. And then we also talked about the one-on-one service is going to weave through the other questions, but this being, you can take them out one-on-one. If you can with a second servant, that would be even better. But being able to build that relationship, take them out during the week and things like that. Question 3, what is the biggest challenge that the youth are facing? So there's obviously a lot, but we came up with 4. One of them is boredom. So in this culture and age, they're very bored, and so we have to, as servants, really focus on keeping them busy. Their identity, which is tied into question 5, that they struggle to figure out who they are just as teenagers, and then understanding themselves in the culture. We talked about cultural integration, so there are questions about, am I American, am I Egyptian, how do I fit into this culture? And then learning how to socialize and be connected with their youth inside the church and outside of the church. Number 4, is there a need for a spiritual guide apart from the Father of Confession? And the answer to that is yes. So we talked about how it would be really important, especially in this age group, for, like, we can do kind of these bigger services, but having that one-to-one connection. So really, like, as a servant, being a mentor for youth is really important. So kids who are struggling with everything you can name, every issue under the sun, we won't really know what's going on unless we connect with them one-on-one. So an idea is just to take each servant and sort of like assign them to 2 or 3 of the youth in the class, and then being able to mentor them through that process. So to check in, take them out, like I said, get to know them, understand how they can engage in whatever type of service that they would be good at. Someone mentioned that we are serving souls, so we have to focus on each of these youth as being that we're serving their soul. So we really like that. And it's important for us as well to be able to direct them to their Father of Confession, so we're their spiritual guide. We're a spiritual guide for them, but we have to also connect them back to the church. So everything we do, right, everything matters. So if we're out with them, our prayer before we eat, our like mentioning services, our bringing them to church liturgies, our prioritization of services. So, like, you know, if there's a meeting, a Bible study on Wednesday night, and they know that, right, being able to encourage them and say, okay, we can go out, and then we'll go to Bible study together. So making sure it's spiritual guide. Question 5, how can we help the youth build their own Christian Orthodox identity? So we said the first step is that we have to build first our own identity, know who we are as Christians. That's super important, because if we don't know who we are, then we can't bring anybody to the faith. So we need to really know our faith well and be able to answer those questions. And we want to teach through actions. So Abuna Matthew shared this quote from St. Francis of Assisi, and he says, preach the gospel, and if you must, use words. So all of our actions, again, the youth are looking at what we're doing, so we need to make sure that our actions align with our words. And let's see. And then question number 6, aspects of commitment in the life of a servant. So we basically said that church service does not begin and end on Sunday, that it's an active role we have to be playing throughout the entire week. And one important point that someone mentioned in our group was that we have to first focus on self-care, so we need to focus on our own spiritual life. And if we are committed in our own spiritual life, then God will guide us and allow us to be committed in our service. And making sure that we call, check up, text, just pay attention, especially when the youth are not in class or not coming around. We need to pay attention to them. I think that's it.
Finally, but we had to split in 2 groups of other services. So we had group 1, they had the same questions, but we had group 1, I think it was with the Abuna Carlos. And anyone who's with the Abuna Carlos? Yes.
Okay, hello. So as Abuna mentioned, we were one of the other groups, so I tried to generalize our responses as best I could, but it was a large range of services that we all provide. So the first question was how to make services other than Sunday school attractive. So we said age-appropriate materials and activities. One example of this was in the clinic, having something for the kids that come with their parents so that they have something to do, keep them occupied and busy while they're there. It'll help the parents want to come more because the kids will be occupied while they're busy. We also talked about making buildings and materials look nice and look attractive. So if we can hang art in, for instance, in the clinic, or just make sure that the church looks welcoming and inviting and clean, that's important. We also talked about meeting the needs of those that we are serving. We talked about having visitations, so if people are unable to come here, maybe going to them, meet them where they are. We also talked about inviting them to give a talk or talk about their experience to get them involved. We talked about having food because we all like to eat, so that's usually important to attract people to services. We also talked about potentially inviting expert speakers to talk at one of the meetings, so it might help increase those that are there for the service. The second question that we had was how to appreciate the talent in each church member and appreciate the value they can bring to any service. So this one, we talked about serving with humility, focusing on the needs of those that we are serving instead of our own needs or our own pride. Concentrate on capturing the talent of the youth, specifically high school and college. So hopefully we can capture their talent and get them involved in the church early. Then that will help them hopefully stay servants in the church later. We talked about having discussions with people and getting to know them. Potentially talking with parents or other people who know the talents of this individual. That way we can help foster them. And we also talked about being a source of encouragement, no matter who you are. So whether you're a servant in Sunday school or not, as a church community, we need to be encouraging the talents of everyone. So we can't just rely on the priests or the Sunday school servants to encourage our youth and also all the community in our church. Number 3 is how to apply compassion and mercifulness among the servants and the people whom we serve. So we talked again about encouraging others. I think that that's a really important theme, and getting people involved and showing compassion and mercifulness. We talked about staying positive with each other, lead with compassion. So I know compassion is already in the sentence, but if we're the leader of the compassion, whether or not it's being directed at us or not, I think that it'll go a long way. And then also being patient and kind. Number 4 was how to find a matching type of service for each church member. So for this one, we talked about having a public list of service opportunities so individuals are aware of what service opportunities are out there for them to get involved in. We talked about, again, encouraging those people that we have around us who either come to events that we are already at and encouraging them to maybe take another role or get more involved, or just people that we know in general that we know aren't involved. We can encourage them, and if we notice a talent that they may have, maybe recommend that they start attending a service or use that talent for the church. We talked about talking to people and maybe trying with small activities. So especially we talked about with the younger kids, maybe starting with small activities to see how they do, and then, you know, in that activity you might notice that a kid has a certain talent and maybe start to encourage them with that talent, as we spoke about earlier, like trying to capture them at a young age. One idea that we had that was really interesting was maybe for the Sunday school classes to have a list outside, or I'm sure you guys already have a list outside the door of the kids that come to that class, and maybe throughout the year, as you notice talents in the kids, write that talent next to their name. So by the end of the year, hopefully each kid, you've noticed something in them, they have a list of talents next to their name and everyone can see it and they can maybe take some pride in that talent and start to foster it and use it. We also talked about Sunday school teachers maybe bringing a list of talents for each of their assigned kids to the servants meeting. Abuna was a big proponent of that. And then number 5, aspects of commitment in the life of the servant. So we talked about having faithfulness, so whether or not we feel like serving that day or whether or not we're able to juggle a couple other things in our life, we know that we made a commitment to serve in whatever service that we are attending, so we need to be dedicated to that. We talked about remembering our passion for the service that we're in, and remembering specifically why we started to serve, and why we serve in general. And then the last thing that we talked about was taking ownership of the service that we're in, so not just relying on the others that we serve with. I overheard that, I guess this is a problem in Sunday school classes, that if there's a few teachers teaching one class, they kind of rely on whoever's giving the talk that Sunday to be there, when really we should all be there all the time, whether we're in charge of that particular day or that particular service or not. We should take ownership of our service. And then the last thing that I just wanted to mention that Abuna also wanted to say that was really important is that the servants meeting should play a huge role in all of our service. Thank you.
And then group number 2, that was, I guess, with the Bunagathon. They're going to be the same questions and what they've shared together with.
So for question 1, how to make services other than Sunday school attractive, we started by to be available as a servant for all people that we serve, and Liftaqad, ask about whomever did not show up or came to the service just once and didn't show up again, and either from the people we're serving or the other servants. And a point that we stressed was there's never a service that's not important. There's never a service that's too small, that's not that important in the church. That doesn't exist. Every service is very important. Every service is building with other services to the integrity of the church. We need in every service to have its own structure, because we also said that if the service doesn't have structure, it's gonna fall down, it's gonna collapse. We need also to advertise for the services. People should know what we do, what the service does, and what doesn't include. It sometimes makes it actually like appealing to them to start servicing. For question number 2, how to appreciate the talent each church member and appreciate the value they can bring to any service. Reaching out is important for that, and also, like I said before, advertising for the service, making sure everybody knows what the service does, and to make sure that we assign responsibilities to the service members. Make sure that we think and discuss like how to use certain talents that people have. They come to serve with us. Make sure that we use their talent, not to assign a responsibility or a task to them that they don't have a talent in. Always encourage, always make sure that what they do in the service, it matters and it makes a difference. And even if we have to criticize, let's stress the positive points first. For question number 3, how to apply the compassion and mercifulness among the servants and the people whom we serve. Following up is very important with the people we serve and with other servants. Appreciation, making sure that we show appreciation to the servants and to the people we serve. And to see, there is a very important point, to see Christ in everyone we deal with in the service. Mireille actually told us a story about they went and visited a convent in Egypt, and they were served great food, like they have never seen in a monastery or a convent before. And when they asked why is that so different from any other place, they were told that when they got into this kitchen service, they were told, imagine that you are cooking every day for Jesus. He's coming and he's gonna sit with us and he's gonna eat with us. So if we apply this to any service, it's gonna make a great difference. And for example, also another example, for the service of a clinic, if somebody came through and they had like an issue and they didn't show up again, we make sure if we follow up with them, that could actually make a great difference, and it would assign a positive image to the service. Question number 4, how to find a matching type of service for each church member. We said that to have the eye of a scout, meaning we have to be looking for people to serve with us in our services, encourage people, and it doesn't have to be either Abuna or the service coordinator that is looking for the talents, but if everyone keeps an eye on even in a simple conversation and at home in a gathering, that can make also a great difference, finding people and finding talents to help with the service. Also, like I said before, advertise for the service, make people know what kinds of service are available in the church and what they can help with. For question number 5, aspects of commitment in the life of a servant, we said that our first commitment as servants is to God. We are committed to God, first and foremost. When committing to a service, should be like you're on a journey to see God. That's how we're supposed to be on our way to go to the service. And in the service, we should be like, a service is a team. So when I'm going to a service, I should know that I have a backup, that somebody is gonna back me up if I stumble, if something goes wrong with what I'm doing. I should always have somebody like covering me. Yeah, I believe that's it.
Thank you so much, Mina.
So just some comments and things that I benefited going around, and from what you all were saying right now, I just took some notes and things that I benefited and things that were reinforced for me. Of course, relationship, especially for the, when it came to Sunday school, almost everyone mentioned the idea of relationship. And we can't, if someone's misbehaving or if someone is doing something, the only ability that we have to correct them in as much as we have a relationship with them. That's the leeway, that's the stretching that we have in terms of how much we can actually correct somebody else. It depends on how deep of our relationship with them we have. We can correct them, of course, and we have a responsibility to correct them. But the ability for them to accept many times will be based on how much we've offered to them in a relationship. And as several people mentioned as well, the relationship between us and the kids, between us and the parents of the kids if they're younger, especially when they're younger, and the parents and the kids themselves. We want all of these to be strong and successful relationships, so we can't focus on one at the expense of another. And the idea that, again, creating barriers between us and the parents, or us and the kids. So recently, a lady came up to me, and in front of her, maybe high school youth, she was telling me, she started a conversation with me, and then she said something like, I don't remember what his name, Paul, his name is Carlos, but Carlos, مثلا, would like to say, and as soon as she like looked at him for a second, and she was about to say his name, she hadn't even said his name yet. He already, this is the first time I met them, he already rolled his eyes and he walked away before his mom said his name, because she knew this is what she does often. So I immediately afterwards, he had walked away, and I told her, Mama, you can't do that. You're wrong. I don't know this lady, but I had to tell her, you're wrong. It's not right for us to like allow them, even if we don't want to bring up the misbehavior of the child in the class, and we know that maybe the parents are prone to do this, maybe they're going to bring it up. We're sorry, and so is acting up in class, and kaza, kaza, kaza. So we want to make sure that we're proactive with the parents. And examples like giving exercises and things that will connect the parents with the lesson. Like the example that I gave you of giving that gallon bag to the children. The parents are going to need to be involved in them giving it to a homeless person. And having things that will, or like you said, to give the lesson, or the tools that you used in the lesson, the videos that you give in the lesson, to give it to the parents. Or a memorization verse that they're going to have to repeat with their child. Something like this. When there's misbehavior also, like some of you said, the visitation allows us to know what's going on in the house that maybe is affecting them in school. A lot of bullying comes from things that maybe their sibling is bullying them. Maybe there's something that's happening that they need in their house and they don't have it, or something's happening in school. When we get to know them, then we'll be able to attend to it. One thing that I mentioned in one of the groups, the importance of when it comes to misbehavior, it could be on us as well. Maybe our lesson is simply we're just talking, and we're not seeing whether they're attentive to us or not. And the idea that our attention span is as old as our age. So if we're 5 years old, for example, then our attention span is 5 minutes. So we have to switch it up. It's not that we can only give a lesson of 5 minutes, but after 5 minutes have happened, we have to sing a song with them, or we have to give them some other activity to do, something they're going to color, or someone's going to come and act something out, or we're going to sing a song together, or we're going to memorize a verse together and repeat it. But our attention span is based on the age that we're serving. Even when it comes to high school and adults, we were taught being taught about preaching in the monastery, in the seminary, Abuna was telling us that we have to give them windows to look out from. Meaning we have to give them some sort of a story or something in the middle of the talk that we want to be distracted. After about 15-20 minutes of talking, we want to be distracted. We're looking for distract ourselves. So let us distract them in the way that we want them to be distracted, if we can say it that way. To give them a story in the midst of it so they can glance out of this window of a story and then come back to the lesson. The topic of a spiritual guide versus a father of confession came up, and it's important to realize we need to be mentors and guides to those whom we serve. But this is not different from the guidance that they receive from the father of confession. We have to make sure that we're not serving as an equal to the father of confession, nor as a replacement to the father of confession, but we're working in assistance to the father of confession. So a lot of what I do, because I go around to many churches, a lot of what I'm serving the lost sheep with is I'm simply telling them the most important thing you can do is develop a relationship with a spiritual father. To have a father of confession, to go to him consistently. And this, as I mentioned in several servants' meetings, the two things that Sayyidina Abu Yusuf told me when I asked him what are the most important aspects of service, he said faithful repentance and confession. This is for the servants. Faithful repentance and confession, and time management. And so that first thing, and the second thing really, we're delivering to the people. When we're mentoring them, when we're spending time with them, we also want to encourage them to have that consistent relationship of trust with their father of confession. Commitment in service outside of church, our commitment in the service in general. It reminds me of a story, not a story, like my experience. When I went to a convention one time, it was a bunch of youth at a church had done a skit and acted it out, and it took hours. I remember when I went to the church, I saw them working on it, but I didn't know what they were doing. But they were working on it. It was a very, very good presentation and video. But then as they were showing it at the convention, they bring it up on YouTube. So on YouTube on the side, and I said this in one of the servants' meetings, YouTube on the side, what comes up? Advertisements, but also other suggestions, right? Other suggestions of videos. Where do those suggestions come from? From what we watched, right? So the things that are on the side, they had a private, whatever you call it, like thing on YouTube, but the whatever computer they were using, whatever servant's computer it was, the suggestions that were on the side were inappropriate. So although this was very beneficial for them, and I commend them for all the hard work that they did, but our commitment to the service inside and outside of the church will show eventually. Maybe it's not going to show in a blatant way like this. And actually some of them, they went through 2 different videos, they stopped the video and then they talked about it a little bit, and they stopped another part of the video, they talked about it. But they didn't even realize what was going on. So I had to discreetly tell the servant, make sure that they black screen in between. There's no way out of it at this point. Make sure that they black screen in between so that they're not looking at what's on the sides. But it reveals the commitment in the service, and what we do outside of the church in our service is very, very important. It will affect those whom we serve. And last comment about all the different servants that are serving outside of Sunday school. We recognize that all of the services work together to serve the people. We need all of them. Whether we're cleaning the church, then we pray for the people that are going to sit in the pews. Wherever I'm cleaning right now, God be with the person that's going to be sitting in this spot. And this is things that we've received, and we've learned these things over time. That there were people that were moved out of these services of cleaning and given other services, and because they were faithful in praying for those whom we sat in the pews, there's one specific story in mind, then that's the people were negatively impacted. Like they realized the negative impact on the people because that person wasn't serving and cleaning anymore. Not because it wasn't just clean. So praying for them, whenever we're cleaning plates or we're washing dishes or we're preparing food, whoever's going to eat from this plate, whoever's going to eat from this food that we're making, we're praying for them. Whenever we're making Orban, we're praying for the people that will come to liturgy. If we're making the small Orban, we're praying for all those who will partake of it. And each of us having a prayer list of the servants that we're serving with. So this does not just apply in Sunday school. The Sunday school servants should have a list of whom they're praying for, as whom they're serving, and the servants with them, and so should every servant in any other service. All the people that are serving in the kitchen, all the people that are serving in IT should be praying for one another. And another idea linked on to what was said is maybe we can take, especially the younger children that don't know what it takes to have a church be functioning, take them one time to the IT room. This is what goes on. This is how the streaming happens. Take them, this is when people clean, they come this day. See, nobody knows that they're normally here, and we take them the day that people are cleaning the church. We take them to the people that are making the kitchen, the Orban. I've heard of churches that they'll get the youth together and they'll teach them how to make Orban, middle school, high school. Not that they're going to make it for the liturgy, but the youth will learn how to make Orban to understand it, and it'll be a lesson about the Orban itself and the meaning behind it. So this is just some comments that came across as you all were doing the workshops. One thing I don't want to forget to mention, it came up in one of the groups as well. By God's grace, we're going to start here in the Tampa Bay area other services for serving the community. Abuna Joshua has been doing this, and he's looked into it. So if you're interested in serving in specifically assisted living homes or orphanages, that service is being started, and you can give your name to Abuna Joshua. He's going to be serving this capacity. And I know that there's other services. I know Abuna Matthew and St. Ruwais, you mentioned in the talk, also you're going to be starting services weekly too. In conclusion, we want to thank the servants of St. Mary and St. Mina Church for hosting this spiritual day. Specifically, of course, the fathers, Abuna Carlos, Abuna Mina, and Abuna Rameya, may God reward them. And all the servants that participated in preparing it, whether it's the food or the church or the cleaning and preparing everything in the rooms, may God reward you all. And all the fathers that came, may God reward your reverences. And all the servants who helped from different churches. There's a need for us to recognize us and our unity. Part of what was being said now in the workshops is the unity between the servants. How much more so does the unity between the churches affect the people that we serve? And lastly, I want to end by saying, pray for, when you pray these liturgies, whether we're gathered together or not, pray for Sayyidina Ambi